Um, yeah, we don't define what religion is, and we don't define what art is, but we we recognise that religion is not is can be meant many things to many people, and we try and make space for that here, but we recognise there's differences, and one very simple but profound difference is different days of rest. Today is Saturday, Jewish Shabbat, which means that Orthodox Jews and others who observe Shabbat in that way probably won't feel able to be here today. So if you are watching on our recording, welcome and thank you for bearing with us. And anybody else who, for any other reason, can't be here today, welcome also. So religion and also art. We don't define what art is, but I think it's fair to say that we are coming from the context of English art schools. We both teach, I used to teach here actually. I no longer do. I'm a chaplain at University Arts London. Nina still teaches here at Goldsmiths, which is part of University of London. And of course the universities came out of religion. In fact, in the English system, the universities, Oxbridge, Durham, etc., the original universities, you had to be a member of the Church of England to be a student. And in fact, in order to teach, you had to be a member of the clergy. You were sort of automatically, or not say automatically, but you were kind of ordained in order to teach in a university, which effectively meant Catholics, Jews, dissenting Christians were excluded from universities. That went up to the 19th century. It was actually 1871 was the university, an act of parliament came in to sort of stop these tests that effectively excluded non-Anglicans. But before that, around the same time, but a little bit before that, art schools and other state-funded institutions were founded, including also the University of London, of which Goldsmiths is now a part. And they were explicitly non-religious, or we might say secular. Okay? So when we Nina explained yesterday, again, I won't rehearse it, but one of the reasons, please come in, one of the reasons for setting this up was that we found that students in particular were finding it difficult to speak about their practice in terms of religion. And this was an increasing issue, and we wanted to address it. And we have done so as we have. It's online, you can see that, and we're not the only people, we recognize we're not the only people doing that, but I think it's a bit rare in a university situation. And but I think I want to acknowledge that, the emphasis on secularism is, there's a history to it. I've just explained the exclusionary nature of it, and there are many other reasons why artists in particular might feel constrained by the context of religion, and we recognize that also. But the fact remains that I think there are many students who I think we're all students, right? But teachers, the students who also teach, right, want to be able to speak in these terms, and also increasingly, I think that as the universities have opened up, particularly to international students, but also just demographics within home students, religion is part of people's culture. It's not just a sort of belief system. It's part of culture. So if you're closing down the opportunity to speak about religion, you're preventing people from speaking about their culture, right? And that's clearly a problem. So I think it's very complicated, but we try and do our best to address it as openly as possible. But I will just offer this thought, that when people talk about secularism, I try and respect it, but I always say, well, what secularisms are we talking about? If people talk about religion, well, you have to talk about what religion. If you talk about secularism, I would suggest that there's as many secularisms as there are religions. So secular Judaism is very different to secular Catholicism, for example, right? And the default secularism, I find when people in a university say this is a secular institution, what they really mean, I'm sorry, but I think it's not for me to say what they mean, but I would ask the question, do you mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant secularism? So that's a thought I just leave you with. Okay, I picked the straw of showing first, or Eleanor did on my behalf. So I'm not going to definitions. I don't want to define my work really very much here, but I can talk about how it's made. Pardon? Are they on? Yeah. So the materials, I can talk about the materials of this work, and I'll leave you to think about anything else. But the materials are essentially a clip from Carrie, which probably doesn't need a lot of introduction, kind of anti-heroin, I guess. And the other clip is from someone who may need a bit more explanation, Myra Hess. Anybody here know who Myra Hess was? Okay. Myra Hess was a concert pianist, and she, in the Second World War, all the concert halls and theatres were closed in London. There was nowhere to go and listen to music. The National Gallery was emptied of paintings. The frames were left on the wall. You can find photographs of this. It's quite extraordinary. So you go into the National Gallery, and the frames are on the wall, but there were no paintings there. So she came up with this idea of having concerts in the National Gallery, right? And she went to the director, Kenneth Clark, and said, how about the occasional concert in the National Gallery? And he said, let me think about it. He went away, and he came back to her the next day and said, no, I don't want an occasional concert. I want one every day. And she organized every day for 6.5 years, Monday to Friday, a concert in the National Gallery. I think there was sixpence or something. All the artists got paid the same amount, non-hierarchical. When bombs fell and the gallery was blown up, they moved down into the basement. It just kept going. She was an English pianist, but she was also Jewish, and so she had a double reason to feel threatened by this Nazi onslaught. So this, and 750,000 people, basically workers who were still in London, used to come and queue up. He wasn't sure it would work, but the first day of the first concert, he went into his office, looked out the window onto Trafalgar Square. There was a line all the way around Trafalgar Square, right? People basically hungry for music, okay? And there was this piece that she transcribed a Bach cantata. It's known as Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, and it's her most famous piece of music. So I've got a clip of her playing that, which is the other, but that's not what the work's about, but that's the material. Thank you very much.